Hey, I'm NichBoy and welcome to Pocket, and today I'm going to list a bunch of games that are not the 5 best games of 2016. So some incredible games came out in 2016, and tomorrow I will give you my top 5 list of what those games are. But I thought I would just take a chance to mention some games that deserved a mention in 2016, for better or worse. And what better way to start off this list of some of the best games that came out in 2016 than this. The best game that didn't come out this year. That game is Contradiction Spot the Liar. It actually came out in January of 2015, but this one is a gem.
This is Inspector James.
Jenks.
What's all this about?
There was a death in the village. Kate Vine, I believe you both knew her.
Yeah. Do you need to speak to both of us?
I'll just speak to Simon first, if that's okay.
Here's what I want to know.
Just come through.
Where do I get one of those hats? This was one of the first games that I live streamed with all you guys this year, and it just had that perfect combination of a mystery that was worth solving, really fun interactive gameplay, and it's just stupid enough that we could make fun of it, but also love it at the same time. Like Goose.
Know anything about a broken window at the pub round the back?
Pub,
The Jinx
a
actor.
broken window at the back.
Just so
I
heavy.
saw it was broken.
Sure, the ending sucked because even though we figured out who the murderer was, the much bigger question of what the company was doing and what's going on in this town was left unanswered. And I'm worried that we're not actually going to get an answer for that because the obvious sequel that it's setting up may never come. This game just provided me with so much joy. It also provided us with Jenks. And I feel like we cannot let 2016 go by without just referencing the fact that Jenks is one of the best game characters that I've probably ever come across. Also, this game started this year the way that I intended to finish it. Incredibly camp.
What do you know about poppy pods?
Poppy pods. But this wasn't just the year of Jenks, because technically 2015 was the year of Jenks. This was also the year of something equally as annoying. It's the best VR. Sure, the last few years have actually been the years of VR, but 2016 was the first year that you could actually just buy it as a consumer in a shop and get it yourself. And I'll tell you what, I did not do that. I still do not own a single VR headset, and there's still yet to be that game that really makes me want to spend all that money to get into the platform. But there have been a couple that were very enjoyable, and the one that I loved the most was Batman Arkham VR. Oh, shite! I talk about this game almost every single time I talk about VR, so there's not too much more to say about it, but it's just the perfect use of that platform. It's putting me in the perspective of someone who I idolize as a child and I now get to become. It uses its sense of space in a really elegant way. It feels open, it feels big, but at the same time it restricts you in a way where you're not sort of wandering around, skipping around and feeling motion sick. You're moving like Batman actually moves in the world, and that works really well in the game. The story is also super compelling. I wish that it came out not on VR so that people can play through even if they don't have it, because it's almost an essential story to tell in the whole Batman Arkham universe. Oh, that is so cool.
Calibration complete.
More of these sort of really polished, really refined VR ideas, I think, is what will sell the platform more for me. I see a lot of potential when it comes to different ways that games can be played, but I've yet to see many games that really execute their ideas as well as Batman did. But one other really did as well, and that is accounting. Oh no! Why? I'm scared he's gonna come back to... Shit, they're onto me. And how could we expect anything less from the combination of Crows, Crows, Crows with William Pugh and Squanch Tendo with Justin Roiland? It's a match made in screaming hell.
What are you doing in my place? Get the fuck out of here!
I'm very sorry.
This is my tree
Oh,
place.
I'm so not good in these
This is my
scenarios.
tree world.
So of course it's the perfect game for me. It wasn't doing anything particularly amazing with the way that it incorporated VR, but it did just put you in a space that you kind of couldn't escape from. I think that's a lot of what William Pugh is interested in. We've had games like the Stanley Parable and Dr. Langskov. You've been put in this scenario where you have to work your way through it, and there's no way of getting out of it. There's this sense that you need to complete this game in order to escape the game itself, and this was a perfect example of you started playing a VR game and then you fell down this VR hole that just got worse and worse and more obnoxious and more loud and more sort of just in your face, and you're just trapped in this environment. But it's a great environment to be trapped in. And I do say that it didn't do anything particularly different with VR, but at one point I did have to get on my hands and knees, and that felt really degrading. And I really, really was into that. Do I need to debase
get in the
myself like
guillotine.
this? I think I do.
Put your head in the guillotine.
Ah! Technically my head wasn't in there. So there's still a long way to go for VR, but there's two great examples for devs to follow. But there was one other thing in VR that wasn't a game really, but it's the Dota 2 viewer. And I think that this is the whole second side of VR that is potentially more interesting for me. It's the way that you can incorporate it into other games or even just into other applications of your life. This is a fantastic way to watch Dota. Sure, it's not actually the way I want to watch the Boston Major because this thing is just sitting heavily on my head, but I think it's a beautifully implemented viewer, and it's a way of looking at a game in a different way than we have seen before. Also, it highlights that idea of shared experiences. When you jump into a game, suddenly there's a floating lean ahead, and you realize someone else is watching this with you. It just makes it a different experience than knowing that, you know, there's 150,000 people watching something on Twitch. Here, I've actually got 4 or 5 people in the same physical space, and we're all experiencing the game together.
Fender juking in the trees, tried to go for the TP out.
Who are you? Someone else is in here with me watching. Hi. Hi. Ah! This could be a really exciting space for esports to head into. But when I wasn't sweating under the weight of plastic goggles weighed down on my face, I was learning things about myself. Shooter surprise. There are a bunch of shooters this year that I really enjoyed. Who would have thunk that? I think it's because so many of these shooters that came out were all doing something different and interesting that I wasn't expecting. And the best one, I think, was Battlefield 1.
Ed was behind you!
I did not at all get into the multiplayer. I'm just looking at the single player experience here, but I adored it. I loved the storytelling. A lot of this has to do with the vignettes, obviously, that it's we're able to see characters in different theaters of war, different kinds of people, all being affected by this terrible tragedy that happened. But at the same time, these vignettes also meant that a lot of the storytelling was really condensed. It's not the same as a normal shooter campaign where it's been stretched out, this one story over 14 hours, so that you go through 45 minutes of a level. You're not actually getting a huge amount of story progression there, you're just getting the mechanics of the shooter. And that's what most people are looking for, but I'm terrible at shooters. So what I'm actually looking for is something to really engage me on a narrative level. And that's what Battlefield 1 gave me. A bird load of engagement. And now I'm a bird. And they treated war with respect. I shouldn't say that like it's a particularly new and exciting thought to have, but everything about it just felt really refined and really, really emotional. Every time I played one of these vignettes, I would finish it off and I would reflect on the story that just happened, and then I would also broaden it out to go, wow, what would have it actually been like to be in that scenario? And I know that lots of these stories would have happened all over the world through every single war. It actually made me think about my place in the world and the things that my forebears have done. When was the last time a video game did that? I'm sorry, Batman Arkham VR, but you didn't.
Got you.
One of the other great shooters of the year was Titanfall 2, and again, like Battlefield 1, I had zero expectations for the campaign of this game, but it was joyous, and that was the difference between Battlefield 1, which is very dark and thought-provoking and emotional. Titanfall 2 was really fun, and the reason that it was so fun was because it would take these different missions, these different levels, and every single one of them was approached that we're going to introduce an interesting mechanic here, we're going to play it out as much as we can, and then we're going to leave it, and we're going going to give you something else. And so even though the story was trash, the actual gameplay was really exciting because sometimes it's a platformer, sometimes it's a time travel game, sometimes it's just like a straight up wave-based shooter, sometimes it's a Japanese role-playing game when characters get introduced. It just had so much variety that I never really got bored just aiming my gun and shooting at the same thing over and over again.
Militia tosser.
Enemy tighten down.
One game that did do that, but it didn't bore me, was Gears of War 4.
Welcome home, James.
And I'm kind of in the minority in the office for liking Gears 4. I have a heap of affection for the first few Gears games, so when this came out, I was really excited to dive back into this world. And even though a lot has been refined and that, it very much feels like a now generation game, gameplay-wise, it still feels a bit older. And that's a criticism for a lot of people, but for me, it was a bit of a nostalgic thing. I managed to slip back into my active reload, nice video gamey loop. They even incorporated one of the best things about Gears, which was the wave mode. Let's just put that straight in the campaign. Pete hated it, I loved it. But like, oh, Jesus Christ, my body! Good on you, Gears, come back for more. And the last shooter in this category is very different from all the others, but it's super hot. And it's super hot.
Super hot.
This is a game where the entire experience, which only lasted a couple of hours, was just the one mechanic over and over and over again. As you got better at it, they explored it, and I felt like such a badass. I love the design of the world. I love the shattering enemies. I love the unique idea. It's this one idea that carries the whole game, and you don't really see that much. Generally in games, you see an idea and then it gets added on and added on and added on. Here, it was basically just the same thing the whole time, but because they're introducing more complex puzzles, more environments, and you're learning how to utilize all the skills that you have at your disposal, it was just almost a perfect gameplay experience. I have never felt as cool as I did in Super Hot. I'm so sorry. There are also a few games that have been out for ages but got some very significant updates. It's best updates. You know the games I'm gonna talk about because they're the games I always talk about, Hearthstone and Dota. Hearthstone got 2 great expansions and 1 okay adventure. We got Whispers of the Old Gods and The Mean Streets of Gadgetzan. These were fantastic expansions, completely game-changing. One gave us Yogg-Saron. It nearly broke the entire scene, but so many different interactions and ways to play the game. And then Mean Streets, it hasn't been out for that long, but there's so many new archetypes coming up. It's a really great look at, okay, here's some mechanics we already have in the game, like Reno Jackson. You have 1 of every type of card in your deck, only 1 copy, and then you get to do something cool. How can we apply this to different cards? How can we expand on this? And they've done it in a really joyous way.
Embrace the power of the Cabal!
Well played.
Also, Dota 2, which I had fallen off playing for the last couple of months, just a couple of days ago came out with its 7.0 update. It is game-changing. It's a completely different game. I love it. I'm so excited to be back in Dota. Hearthstone, Dota, you gotta love them. You gotta play them forever. And speaking of playing things forever, I did not expect this. I can't believe I played this much of these. Madden NFL 17.
Now it's Tannehill, and he will take it in for a Dolphins touchdown.
What have I become? I am disgusted with myself, but at the same time, I'm so rock hard for it. This was the year I got into sports games, apparently, because Madden really just ticked a lot of boxes for me. As soon as, I think it was Pete, or it was Goose, or maybe it was Lin G. One of the 3 of them, maybe it was Elliot. One of the 4 of them, it could have been John, so one of the 5 of them told me to look at Madden as though it's a strategy game as opposed to a sports game. And as soon as I did that, my mind opened, and now I'm a gridiron guy. And I can't believe I'm saying that. I'm not very comfortable with it, so we're gonna move very quickly on to FIFA 17. More sports. It's growing. Through pass. Go, Johnny. Go, Johnny. Go, Johnny. Yes! 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 FIFA 17 didn't do a huge amount different except for the journey, and the journey was a really cool idea that I think ended up fizzling out, but it did get me hooked enough into the gameplay of FIFA to continue playing that game semi-regularly. It's still sitting in my Xbox One. It's still ready to be played. I haven't returned to it for a while, but I plan on knocking out some games over the holidays. And the last one that I can't believe I played this much of, Dark Souls 3. Very surprising. Oh shit, I potted, Pete. I potted, and look how low I got him before I even attacked that ugly
Yeah. Hashtag R18.
I have to blame Pete for this. He helped me get through that first boss. Yes! You! Oh my god! And the first boss is generally where I give up in the Dark Souls series, but once I managed to get through that and move on, I began to love the way that Dark Souls made me hurt and made me feel lesser and made me feel sad. It was like Dark Souls is a really bad relationship, like I'm in a really abusive relationship with someone emotionally, where they're being really cruel to me and they're constantly making me feel like I'm a piece of shit, but then I return to them all the time. I'm like, but what if I just do this? Maybe then you like me. And then there's this moment where the game's like, yeah, no, you did really well, well done. And then BOOM! Skeleton, right in the face. Except it's a ball and it's rolling down a set of stairs. So yeah, Madden, FIFA, Dark Souls, I played a lot of these, which could explain why I didn't finish some other games. Unfinished! It actually doesn't explain it at all, because all of those games came out way before these next two games, but I've yet to even properly start Dishonored 2. I've played different parts of Dishonored 2 at some press events and then started playing it myself. There's a lot that I know I'm going to love here, but I just haven't sunk the time into it. I just want to mention it because I feel like it could be one of those games that cracks my top 5, but I don't know yet because I haven't actually finished it. The other game, which probably is not going to crack my top 5, but I definitely enjoyed way more than I thought I would, and I have to keep playing, is Final Fantasy 15. Prompto, stop it. I said no. I said no pictures. Prompto, stop it. I hate the camera, Prompto. No, I hate it. I stop it. Now, I don't know if I'm gonna continue enjoying it when I'm not doing it on stream, because I feel like all the mechanics and the story and the stupidness will just build up to a point where I go, I could just be playing Dota instead. And just like Dishonored 2, I haven't played enough of it to see if it would crack my top 5, but I have played enough of the next games, the final list for today, and I know for sure they will not make my list of top 5. It's the bad games. It's disappointments. Mighty Number 9, you broke my heart. Like, what even is it? What is all this stuff doing underwater? Oh, come on, it lagged. Mighty Number 9, I waited so long. I loved you since I was a kid. I just went to the floor for you, mate. I carried your flag, I defended you against everyone, and then you came out. And my goodness, unplayable, disgusting, you should be ashamed of yourself. I'm sorry I'm going so hard on it. I feel like maybe that's a bit of an overreaction, but I don't know a single person who ended up finishing that game. So sad, so much work, so much joy, so much disgusting gameplay. And speaking of disgusting gameplay, Star Fox Zero. I feel like my mother playing a video game. This is how she would play Mario Kart. I had zero expectations for you, which was probably appropriate, but my goodness, you're a piece of shit. You controlled terribly, you looked awful, you've got terrible characters, the gameplay was sometime in the mid-50s, there was nothing there for me, Star Fox. I would have rather played Mighty Number 9, but here's another game I'm not gonna play, No Man's Sky. I just want to die. Because I played enough of you, and I never found a jungle planet, or anything with water, or any animal that didn't look like a dick. It's very disappointing, and even though you have updated yourself, too little, too late. And I'm sure there's some people out there who will enjoy you, but you will always just be a disc that's sitting somewhere in my house, and I don't exactly know where you are. Another one of those discs, Recore. The auto-aim does nothing. This is another game that I had a huge amount of anticipation for because it was made by Inafune, and I should have learnt from Mighty Number 9 that he can't make games anymore. But apparently I didn't. So I played Recore, and again I was disappointed at just how old and clunky it felt. Mighty No. 9 and Recall both suffered from the same thing. It wanted to take a genre of games that aren't being made that much anymore and bring them into the new generation, but it didn't actually bring them in. It just put them on new generation consoles with older gameplay, and that was really disappointing.
What happened, Dad? Where are you? Where's everybody else?
And the final disappointment for me was Mafia 3. And it's not that I necessarily expected a lot of the game until I played the first hour and a half.
Killing them wasn't enough. Lincoln Clay was using them to send a message.
And that first hour and a half is just so good. It is such a different way of telling a story. That faux documentary style is something that we see all the time in television and you rarely, if ever, see in a video game. The music, the style of it, the characterization there at the beginning, it really felt as though we were building towards, oh my goodness, this could actually be a real GTA contender. And then as soon as the open world kind of opens up and you can get out there, it just completely flattened out. And you saw the structure of the game of kill XYZ so that you can get to this boss and then do that 5 times and you'll take over. And the NPCs and the AI was just terrible. The world felt empty. There was a lot of stuff around, but none of it really felt alive. And then the characterization kind of just fell off as well. We just became this violent person again, rather than someone who's doing something because they're tortured or they're motivated by something that's actually, you know, shades of gray and conflicting. This was just violence for violence sake.
You can pray on the way up.
Sad. So that is all the games that are not the 5 best games for NichBoy in 2016. That list will be revealed tomorrow, but on today's episode in the comments, please let me know what you think those 5 games are. A hint, they were not mentioned at all in today's episode. So think about all the games that came out this year that weren't mentioned today. We've got Pokemon Go, we've got Pokemon Sun and Moon, that was the newest one, right, Pete? We've got Salt and Sanctuary, and then there's been a bunch of other games. Think of them all, refine it down to 5, write it in the comments. The person who gets it right, in the right order, will win nothing but my undying love, which you already have. Until we next assemble, my Pocketeers, NichBoy out. Mwah. So I realize that's actually not much of a prize at all. The Battlefield 1 spectator mode is, as promised, delivering some beautiful footage. Sergeant Winter has crafted a slow motion spectator film of his time on the battlefield.
Many men have gone